All right, this is gonna be a serious one. No bits.
Thank God.
All right.
Thank God.
I'm tired of doing it.
Even though the way that we look at when people pass away, it's like, oh, that's their time. It's okay. But is there anybody in your life that you still you feel like they were gone too soon?
Gone too soon?
I have a very obvious answer.
Come on, Bart. Probably not.
No bits, Bart.
No, I'm serious. No
Come on,
bits.
Bart.
No bits.
Really?
Yeah.
So there's
Who
nobody.
could it possibly be?
So there's nobody. In your life, there's nobody in your life that if you could undo their untimely death.
Oh fuck yeah! Our childhood friend.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's a good one, Bart.
Oh, okay. Let me think of a better one.
Robo learns.
He's
Reroll.
our age. So, well, no, I think he's your age. So he's a little bit, couple years older than us. Was it last year he died of a car accident?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was driving in the middle of the night, swerved, and then when he was at the hospital, he was in a coma, and then his parents didn't tell any of us because
Right.
you know.
Told me that.
Yeah, it was like I don't know. Maybe they were hoping that he'd recover or whatever.
Yeah.
He told one of my best friends, my childhood friends, and he was like one of the only people that were able to visit him. And then he told me like, hey, I really wanted to tell you, but the family wanted to keep it low key. And then they thought that he was going to recover and be okay, so they didn't want to alarm everybody. And then also they're just afraid of rumors and shit, right? Because you know how they are, like they're like, I don't know, like that whole secret agent shit,
Like things can turn into like gossip and then turn into telephone real
Who
quick.
knows,
Yeah, and then because our church community is small, so like if one person finds out, everybody will get concerned and bombard that family with nonstop.
yeah.
And the mom probably just didn't want to spend hours on the phone, like explaining.
Because she's going through her own grieving.
Which is understandable.
Yeah.
But what sucked is that I didn't even get to see him because like I was all over like traveling, and so I didn't even get a chance. And then all of a sudden she opens up last minute, like, you guys can come see him now. But this was 72 hours or something like that, and he passed. It was like I didn't have that much of a window.
Yeah, it was
So he
fast.
called me up. It was David, and then he was like, "Yeah, I've been seeing him for the last month. I think his mom finally said that I can start telling you. But I'm going to Korea tomorrow or whatever." And then I was like, "Well, I'm in fucking Vegas. I can't go see him."
Yeah.
So I didn't even get to see him, and I didn't even get to go to his funeral.
Yeah, I was out of town
that
too.
sucks.
Yeah. And then so this is how close our families are. His parents went to college with mine in Japan.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then when we were kids, like we played, and then he went to Japan for a little bit. He came back, and we were both delinquents together. All three of us would skip church, fuck around, and then we ended up joining the same street gang.
Yeah.
And then all that, we got out together, and then he kept staying in that world. And so I think like he kept partying, doing all that stuff up until, his late 30s. And I feel like he's one of those guys that you're just like, man, you're a good dude, but you just kept hanging with the wrong crowd.
I believe that
And
too.
he never turned it around to like, he's a really smart dude. He's just got like, I think he had the right recipe for success, but he just couldn't get out of being in that world with the type of people he was with. And I just heard some fucked up shit that happened to him, and it probably traumatized him really bad, and it had to involve like some crazy crimes that he was associated with. And I think from there, his life just went really bad to the point where he couldn't like get out of that situation, like being blackmailed and being like held to the position where he couldn't get out.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck. Well, being the same age and all, and I just feel like this guy didn't get married, he didn't have kids, and it's just so weird having someone that's like a childhood like friend of yours, and they go poof, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you went to school with them too.
Yeah, in high school, when I was first learning how to break, and like I would practice all the time, he would practice with me, and he was also learning. And then our last year of high school, we made like a show like to try to win the talent show, and we won first place. And then he's like that guy where like, cause he was already like a gangster guy back then, and he's that gangster guy like in a typical movie where like you get him into something else, and like we win it, and he's like, "You really think I could like do this type of thing? Like, you know, moving forward?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, why not? Like, you're good at it." And then he just like got into the other stuff.
It's like that one character in it was Coach Carter. You guys remember that movie with Samuel L. Jackson?
Yeah.
Like he hung around with the bad kids, but then he would be on the basketball team, actually do really good, but then the life pulled him back away.
Yeah, and I think that's why like if he had another shot to like, you know, because you could tell by the quality of person that he was that how doing that life affected him. It wasn't what he was built for.
No, he's a goofy,
Yeah, he's a goof.
funny,
Yeah.
good-hearted dude. And I was like, how did he get? Well, I know how he got in there because I was in there too with him.
Yeah.
But I think he couldn't. I think he was scared of what was outside of that because he was so accustomed to that space.
That seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah. That he didn't have anything to pull him out of that because those were his closest friends at the time.
No one told him that if you get good grades, then you could get financial aid to buy weed.
Yeah. No.
Instant cash.
During that time, we were all hanging still. We were still all working together, doing all that stuff. But I think what actually saved me out of it was JK, YouTube, and finding my own success outside of that world.
It might have been that.
Yeah.
It might have been like, you know, like when you figure out racketeering for a positive cause, but then you got too good at the racketeering part that you focused on that, then the positive cause. Might have been that. I don't know, but yeah, that's
I
true.
know how that feels, Ryan.
What?
Racketeering for a positive cause. Everyone knows how it feels.
Yeah, I've been
We're getting so good at the racketeering.
Grand larceny for a positive cause. Everyone
Yeah.
knows that.
Any what those words mean.
But yeah, he's a good example of that. The person that like comes to mind for me is like my cousin. I had a cousin that was like very close in age to me growing up, and he was like my best friend. And then he was always like a little bit like chunkier. He wasn't fat. He just got a little bit like chunkier around like 5th grade. And then his parents used to make him like work out to like lose the weight, and they just drove him too hard. And then he ended up like getting, what is it called, like when you don't drink enough water when you're working out, you can have like a hemorrhage.
Oh shit, I didn't even know
So
that.
he worked out too quick, too fast.
Yeah, he just worked out. He was playing basketball, and like they were making him do all these activities, and then eventually like he was just like, oh, I need to lay down for a second, and he just laid down and just died, just like that.
From overexhaustion.
The autopsy said that because he wasn't hydrating enough, that it caused a hemorrhage in his brain, like a really small one, and then like it just like that was it.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and it was like we were like, I think he was 11. Like, we were, like,
Jesus.
10 and 11, and then we were supposed to go to like I was gonna switch schools to Glendale Adventist to go to school with him because I wanted to go to like the same school as him. But then after he passed, I ended up going to San Gabriel.
Oh,
Yeah,
dang.
but then that was like it was cut so short over nothing. Like,
How does it feel to deal with death at that young of an age? Because I don't even know, like, because I had friends in junior high where they would lose their grandparents,
Yeah.
and I would see them come to school and they're like bawling, right? And I'm like at even 12 or 13, I'm like, I don't even know if I would be able to deal with it at that age.
Yeah, it's definitely like just weird because nobody really explains much to you because I think our family was so close that at the time everyone was busy grieving about him to like stop and tell me like, hey, so here's what happens and how it works. Like nobody said nothing to me, so I was just like, so he's just gone. Like everyone was just like, yeah, he's just gone.
Yeah.
And because it was almost a thing where the family started to kind of blame each other, then that was the thing that took precedence.
Right.
Like everybody was like, "Oh, you shouldn't have pushed him so
Yeah,
hard."
yeah, of course.
Like it went back and forth like crazy because he was already part of a broken home. So like he had his stepdad and then he had his like
Yep.
biological dad, and so when you have like broken homes and like there's a death in the family, especially of a child, then the war is like insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the blame is like, oh, you're supposed to do this, and like,
Yeah, 'cause
and
they
this is
already
what
have it
happened.
out.
You know, like
Yeah.
it gets really like vicious, and he was the youngest of his siblings. So then everybody was like, to this day, it's still like a sad. His like he's buried at Forest Lawn next to my grandfather, and then like other. He's like he took the family grave that was meant for his grandparents.
Oh shit.
Yeah, because
He's a cousin.
Yeah, because it was so like out of the blue. But that's like a crazy thing. Where,
But that's junior high or high school.
yeah, he died before we reached 6th grade.
That's really young. That's super young.
And it's like it's that feeling of like that sucks because he literally passed just because by their opinion he wasn't. You look at pictures of him, people are like, this kid's not even fat.
Yeah.
But just because of the standard of like how some families are like, you need to lose weight, like they pushed him like crazy.
Treat him like a fucking Filipino special ops, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks, man.
Fucking brown berets.
What was your obvious answer from
Bart, you had something earlier, but
So this is an actual trip. Last night, I had back-to-back-to-back dreams of my pops, all positive. And even in the dream, sometimes you're like self-aware. I remember going like, what the fuck? Like, because I know like he passed, but then sometimes the dreams are so realistic. So when I saw him in the dream, I was like, oh, this is a dream now.
right.
Because obviously he's not here. And then so when I woke up, I was like, dude, that's crazy. And then I'm like, oh shit, it's his birthday this weekend.
Oh wow.
So I took out my wallet, and I always keep his license next to mine. Like I still think about him all the time, so I just try to keep him close. And I was just staring at his picture, and like every picture I have of him, and in his own pictures, he's always like super jolly and smiling. Yeah. So even like Gio calls me a retard, but for his tombstone, I picked the fucking jolliest fucking picture of him. So if you ever go to Rose Hills, he's literally like this.
That's tight. That's tight.
That's how I remember him. He's a goofball, you know. He's a goofball. So if you ever, he's probably the smiliest tombstone you'll see on the whole hill. And I just look, and I always just go like, damn, like what was it going through your mind? Like, cause it's unanswered. I still don't know. And one thing that kind of like shed some light on it, I was listening to this one dude. He's like some special ops dude, but he was talking about how he contemplated suicide many times. Mm-hmm. And then what he said was a lot of people, like a lot of dudes that keep to themselves that can't open up, they go down that path because they think they're taking away a burden to the people around them.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, oh fuck.
So
like,
it's a selfless act to them.
Yeah, so I'm like, what?
It's a cat who leaves home, right? That's what they do famously. Apparently, is like if they're going to die, they leave
They
home.
want to die in their own home, so they like try to escape the house in order to like go to a place where they can.
Yeah, they run away and then to die because they know they're about to die.
Too prideful or whatever. They won't bug you.
Man, what was going through his mind? I wish he could have told me or like left a note or something. But and it's since I was in college, all he ever wanted was to have a grandson. So Taika's here, and then he left. Like as soon as Taika was starting to speak and become his own person, like 3, 4, 5-ish, I'm like, there's just so many questions that like,
I mean,
unanswered.
it could probably just be that it had nothing to do with y'all as family, but he had his own skeletons, and he kept thinking like, oh, maybe if I had a grandson, maybe if I lived here, like all these things would make me happy and shit. Or like made me feel better, but we don't know if he had shit from his own childhood. Like he had a hard fucking life, like swimming to fucking Hong Kong and his friends dying and shit, like on the trip and being a communist refugee. Like, so we don't know like what happened when he was 9 or whatever skeletons he's holding that he's having pain from. Yeah. And it might not even be about you, Taika.
It's clearly not.
Like, because most of our pains are like not. Like family member, like it's like they think they could do something, but not. It's a journey that he probably had to figure out.
I've never seen a son go like, "Hey, Dad, pick a house in Vegas. I got you," and then the dad's like,
I'm out of here.
Gucci.
I'm like, what the fuck?
Like, exactly though.
Not to this is very personal, but like if he had written a note, what would be things that you would have wanted to like hear or understood?
I think just any type of closure, like reasoning, like, hey, I'm doing this, or I'm gonna be leaving because of X, Y, and Z. Like, I just don't even know. Like, I have like not even the faintest clue.
So just like any answer, not necessarily a answer that like would make sense to you.
Or even not an answer, or not even not a why, but even an answer. So like, let's say I'm not gonna tell you why, but I had to do this for myself. I'll be like, okay, I'm not gonna
What if
ask.
it's a ridiculous, and I'm not even kidding here, like a Bart answer, where he's like, I'm running out of shoes.
It could be.
Because, you know, his whole thing was like, I bought this many shoes.
Or I bought too many.
He's like, I don't know what to do with these shoes.
Honestly, my dad's pretty crazy. They could be.
Right. That's what I think, because of you.
So fucking calculated. It could be.
Damn.
Well, because
He had Costco shoes.
Right.
He bought enough to. He's like, I calculated by the time I'm gone, I had enough. So what if it was his last box?
Yeah, he's like, man, I've been wearing these things out. I've walked way more than I thought. I don't know what's going on.
He literally said he still had a bunch though, right?
Yeah, he's got a bunch left
So you
over.
overestimated.
So he damn. I think that's the hard part though, because like when things like this happen, there's really no control or sense you can make out of it. So it can eat you alive, because it's like you can't really dig into this brain and see what's happening.
In the like super zoom out, like out of Bart experience, like how did that like mature you, or like what did it give to you even if you didn't want it?
I think the maturity thing is me understanding, I won't say maturity, but more so like realistic expectations of the world, is that anything could happen at any time, and it could be in the most inconvenient of times. So it does make me cherish like everything that's happening in the present, like way more, because anything, like, it can go at any time, like literally. And then I think also just like kind of like doubling down on whatever aspirations I had to be a good dad, to be like double committed to that.
Yeah.
You would be that productive with it. God.
Vengeful.
I think I'd pick up drinking. I think.
And in the like the overly optimistic sense, it's like what a sick last lesson to give.
A little bit.
That is true. Yeah.
What's not fair is I'm out here waiting for my dad to croak, and then Bart actually had a solid dad.
Lucky.
I'm just like,
Okay, then to how the
that's not-
turntables.
yeah, it's not fair.
Like in the most optimistic sense, like what do you feel like it was the most maturing or like lesson that you
About
got
Bart?
from? Well, no, about your.
How did you learn from this?
You know what I mean? Like sometimes we don't want to learn a lesson, but we do. So like in the most positive.
No,
and
I'm
uplifting
at
thing,
the end
like,
of the day I joke a lot about it, but it's actually I mean, in every situation, if you don't learn from it, then you're a moron, right? But at the end of the day, because he's prepared me to be able to cut off and not be dependent on people. Like, for example, I see family members do this all the time, where they feel like because you're family, now you can't say no. You're emotionally so almost under the spell of being a slave to somebody, and you feel like you owe something to them. But I'm like, no, you have to be able to cut off certain members of your family, especially if they're psychopaths. But I see people doing it and they're tied and they can't do it. They don't have the strength to do it. So I was like, oh shit, he actually prepped me at a very early age to be able to have that ability of, yeah, you're a family member and I love you, but then you also, it's tough love. Like if you cross boundaries with me, then you're gonna get cut off until you can act better. And I see this so much in families where people can't do that. They're like, oh, well, that's my mom, that's my dad, I have to. And I'm like, there's a point where you are obligated to a certain point. But then I think too many people let those lines be crossed.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's because it's emotionally difficult to do those things. You can't cut them off. You feel guilty, all those things. And I have zero feelings toward that. And I'm like, he prepped me for the ability to do that without any internalized pain. Yeah.
in a similar, but obviously very different circumstantial question that I asked Bart, if there was anything that your dad could say to you, like what would you want him to say?
You know what? I think I actually got a lot of good closure last time I talked to him, and then like things that he admitted. So
This was like 2 years ago or 3.
yeah, when I had lunched with he told me about his regrets. I mean, like, he gaslit me about beating my ass and never. That was one thing that pissed me off.
Yeah.
And then, but also I realized like a lot of things as an adult meeting him and going, oh, you're a fucking sociopath. So I was like, you are one of those guys that just, you're lying, but you don't know you're living in a delusion.
That's a form of closure for real, though.
Yeah, and then you're seeing that and you're like, oh, fuck. Yeah. But the other things were that he was telling me like, yeah, I felt so bad, but I couldn't face the family anymore because of the overwhelming guilt. And then the more time that it took, he was like, I couldn't get myself, I just wanted to forget. Because it was like a reminder of his failure. So he's like, I kept telling myself, I'm gonna get back, and I had this dream of I'm gonna have all this money and I'm gonna come back to you guys. And then he goes, I never was able to get to that point. And he goes, I finally paid off my debt like in my late 60s. And he goes like, I couldn't do it. And then he goes, so then by the time I did this, I didn't even have a substantial amount of cash to like come up and say, hey, but he had this like dream of like, all right, the game plan
Mr.
is,
Moneybags comes in, throws cash at the problem.
but it's like a dumb gambler, you know, that keeps failing.
You just want to love.
Yeah, but it's like, I think that's the thing is, I think I realized his intentions were there, but he was a fucking idiot. So it's like, I have this dream, I'm gonna come back a millionaire and I'm gonna save the family, and then he goes, and 30 years pass by. So that's kind of the thing.
Hey, that's good closure.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's a lesson.
Extremely good closure.
Yeah, which is why I started talking to him again.
Yeah.
Because I was like, yo, and then this motherfucker goes, hey, you're rich, right? Can I come just move in with you and do this and do that? And I'm like, fuck you, man. Baby steps.
You're like, dude.
Yeah.
So there's a thing called Luna, right?
But yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
That's seriously awesome, man.
That is
For real.
dope.
Yeah.